We've all been there, stuck in the aftershock of someone who didn't value us, replaying the same questions. Why did he do this? Why wasn't I enough? Will he ever realize what he lost? But here's the truth most people avoid telling you. Healing doesn't start with his apology. It starts when you stop making him the main character in a story that was always yours. This isn't about being bitter, it's about being better. It's about stepping out of the cycle of overthinking and into a place of power where your energy goes toward your peace, not his punishment. Because when someone takes you for granted, the most powerful thing you can do is disappear from their life so completely that if regret ever comes knocking, it finds no door to open. So today, we're talking about what it really means to erase him, not from spite, but from self-respect. Let karma handle him. You've got better places to be. Would you like a conclusion or call to action to wrap it all up? You said, explain the first keynote into 600 words without any heading or ending. Chat GPT said, stop waiting for karma to show up wearing a cape and fixing everything he broke. That moment where he finally sees what he lost and comes crawling back in tears. It's a fantasy, not a plan. And when we hold on to that fantasy, we're actually delaying our healing. We convince ourselves that closure will come from him, from his apology, from his regret, from him seeing you thrive and wishing he never let you go. But here's the hard truth. Closure rarely comes wrapped in the apology we think we deserve. And the more we wait for it, the more we keep ourselves tethered to someone who's no longer investing in us. There's power in deciding that you're the one who gets to close the chapter. You don't need permission from him. You don't need a final conversation where he suddenly sees the light and begs for forgiveness. You don't even need to know what he's feeling right now. Because whether or not he regrets losing you is irrelevant if you know you deserved more than what he gave. That clarity, that's your real closure, that's your exit. And here's something we forget when we're hurting. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't saying something clever, posting something subtle, or proving your worth through success. It's your absence, silence, not a cold silence that's meant to punish, but a peaceful silence that says, I'm no longer available for this. When you step away without drama, without games, without needing a reaction, that is strength, that is self-worth. And most importantly, that is the beginning of your healing. Letting go doesn't mean he didn't matter. It doesn't erase the memories or the feelings. It means you finally accept that no amount of waiting or trying is going to turn him into the person you hoped he'd be. You stop negotiating your value with someone who was never willing to meet you where you stood. And instead of spending your energy analyzing him, defending yourself, or hoping he'll finally understand, you redirect that energy back into your life. The irony is, that's when karma usually shows up, not in some grand cosmic payback, but in the quiet realization he might have one day when he sees you thriving, healed, and genuinely unbothered. But by then, it won't even matter to you, because you won't be waiting for it anymore. You'll be too far ahead, living a life so full and beautiful that the version of you who stayed up wondering what went wrong feels like a distant memory. The peace you're craving doesn't come from him regretting anything. It comes from you releasing the need for him too. So stop chasing closure through his behavior. Stop refreshing his profile hoping to see some sign of regret. And definitely stop making his reaction the measure of your worth. You don't need to be remembered by him to be valuable. You just need to remember who you are. So don't make karma your goal. Make peace your priority. And the moment you stop needing his regret is the moment you start getting your power back. Because he's no longer the one holding the ending, you are. Erasing someone from your life isn't an act of revenge. It's not about being dramatic or trying to make a statement to hurt them. It's about reclaiming your self-respect. Too often, When a relationship ends, especially when it ends in confusion, betrayal, or emotional neglect, we hold onto the person out of habit, hope, or fear. We keep them around in our minds, on our social media, sometimes even in our inbox, convincing ourselves that staying connected somehow preserves something meaningful. But what exactly are we holding on to? A version of them that only existed in our head, a memory that no longer matches the present reality, or the fear that if we truly let go, it will confirm that they're really not coming back. The truth is, keeping someone in your life out of emotional attachment when they've already shown you that they're not showing up for you is one of the most damaging things you can do to your self-worth. You are constantly feeding the story that they were valuable enough to keep, even though they didn't treat you with value. That story chips away at your confidence. It makes you question your standards. It teaches you to tolerate inconsistency, to normalize disrespect, and to view emotional crumbs as something worth chasing. And eventually you find yourself compromising on the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Erasing him completely doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you're done giving someone access to your time, your mind, and your emotions when they've proven they don't deserve it. This isn't about sending a message. It's not even about them. It's about protecting your peace. You don't owe anyone continued space in your life just because they once had a role in it. People lose access to you when they stop treating you with the care that access requires. That's not cold, it's healthy. Letting go is also not about pretending nothing happened. It's not denial, it's acknowledgement. You're acknowledging that, yes, you cared. Yes, you tried. Yes, there were good moments. But now, you've seen enough to know it's not right for you. And you're not going to wait for him to wake up, change, or finally realize your worth. You already know your worth. That's why you're choosing to move on. It might hurt to let go. That's normal, especially when the connection was deep, or when things ended without closure. But every time you choose to protect your energy over feeding the illusion that maybe he'll change, you're telling yourself the truth, that your peace matters more than his potential, that your future matters more than his confusion, that your self-respect matters more than your attachment. And you don't need to make a big announcement about it. You don't need to craft the perfect "I'm done" message or wait for the most empowering moment. You can simply decide, quietly and firmly, that you're no longer emotionally available for someone who couldn't appreciate you when he had the chance. You stop replying, you stop watching his stories, you stop thinking that his validation means something about your value. Because it doesn't, never did, and when you fully understand that, erasing him isn't some painful sacrifice, it's a return to yourself. You get to choose who stays in your life, and anyone who makes you feel small, unseen, or uncertain doesn't earn that place. Let him go not out of spite, but because you've finally remembered who you are, and once you do, you'll stop looking backward. Because you'll be too focused on everything ahead of you that's finally in alignment with the love and respect you've always deserved. When a relationship ends, especially one that left you confused, disappointed, or heartbroken, your mind can become a loop of what-ifs. What if I had said this differently? What if I had tried harder? What if he comes back and I've already moved on? These thoughts can feel endless and incredibly convincing. But the problem is, they keep you stuck in a reality that no longer exists. You begin rewriting the past, changing scenes in your head to try to make it make sense, to soften the pain, or to hold on to the version of him you wanted him to be. But none of that actually helps you move forward. Replaying the past doesn't change it. It just drains your energy and delays your healing. When you're in that place, it's easy to romanticize the moments that felt good and overlook the moments that hurt you. The mind clings to potential. It builds a version of the relationship that only existed in fragments. And then you start grieving not just the person, but the future you imagined with them, the life you thought you were building. But that imagined future wasn't taken from you. It was a story that was never truly going to happen, because it was based on a version of someone who wasn't showing up for you in reality. That's a hard truth to accept, but it's also the most freeing one. To reclaim your peace, you have to shift your focus from the past that you can't change to the future that you still have full power to create. That means choosing to stop asking questions that go in circles and instead asking better ones. Who do I want to be now? What kind of love do I deserve next? What kind of life can I start building that doesn't depend on someone who walked away or gave up on me? These are the questions that move you forward. They don't ignore the pain, but they honor the fact that your life is bigger than this chapter. It's important to remind yourself that your worth is not tied to how someone else failed to love you. People don't always show up with the tools to give the love you deserve, and that's not your fault. You were not too much, you were not too difficult, you were not the problem just because he couldn't handle the responsibility of a real connection. So stop carrying the weight of his inability to meet you there. You don't need to find all the answers to why it ended to start healing. You don't need a perfect explanation to take your next step. What you need is the courage to stop waiting for something that isn't coming and to start living like your future doesn't depend on someone else's realization. Because it doesn't, you get to move forward now, not when he comes back, not when he finally gets it, not when karma does its thing now. This moment, the one you're in right now, is the first step of the what's next. It's where you start showing up for yourself in the way he never did. It's where you get intentional about the kind of love, peace, and energy you allow into your life. The more you shift your attention from what's gone to what's possible, the more you realize how much of your story is still unwritten. You're not behind, you're not broken. You're simply in between what hurt you and what's about to grow you. And that space, that's where your power lives. When someone walks away from you or fails to appreciate what they had, the first instinct is often to want them to know what they lost. You want them to feel it, to wake up one day and realize they let go of something irreplaceable. And while that desire is completely human, it can become a trap. Because the moment you make his regret the goal, you start living your life for a reaction rather than your own growth. You become focused on whether or not he notices your progress, your glow up, your new chapter, when really the most powerful transformation happens when you stop caring if he ever sees it. The truth is regret. If it comes, won't show up when you're trying to force it. It shows up when you're no longer performing for it. When you stop needing him to notice and start living for yourself, that's the kind of shift that isn't just powerful, it's magnetic. Not because you're trying to be, but because nothing is more attractive than someone who has fully reclaimed their energy and redirected it inward. You don't need him to say, "You were right," or "I made a mistake." His words don't change the reality that he wasn't able to be the person you needed when it mattered most. And that's the part we have to sit with. We want people to change after they've hurt us because we want our pain to mean something. We want the ending to be rewritten. But real healing doesn't come from seeing them become better for someone else. It comes from becoming better for yourself because you chose to keep going, even without the apology or recognition you thought you needed. Let his regret, if it ever happens, be a silent witness to how far you've come. Not a loud triumph, not a dramatic scene where he begs for you back, but a quiet awareness that he lost something real. And by the time he feels that, you'll be so far into your own peace that it won't even touch you. You won't need revenge. You won't need to prove anything. You'll just be living proof that losing you was his consequence, and this isn't about pretending not to care. It's okay to admit that you did care, that you did want him to value you, that for a while his attention or lack of it impacted your self-esteem. But now you're moving differently. You're choosing not to let someone's inability to love you properly define your sense of worth. That choice over and over again is how you build the life that's actually meant for you. Growth doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's simply not reaching out, not looking back, not needing validation. It's doing the hard work of healing in private, and then waking up one day and realizing you don't think about him the way you used to. That the pain that once felt like a storm is now just a quiet reminder of a lesson you learned. You'll know you've grown when his name no longer holds weight in your chest. When your life feels full without needing anyone to fill the gaps he left behind. And maybe one day he'll come across your name, your photo, or a memory and feel something. A twinge of loss, a recognition that he had something good and let it go. That's his journey, not yours. Your job is not to sit around hoping for that moment. Your job is to keep living, keep rising, and keep choosing yourself. Because the life you're building, that's what matters now. When someone hurts you, especially someone you deeply cared about, it's easy to start making decisions from a place of pain. You start reacting to how they made you feel, abandoned, betrayed, invisible, and before you know it, your choices start to reflect your wounds instead of your wisdom. You may begin to think, if he can play games, then so can I. Or I'll show him what he lost by being colder, tougher, harder to reach. It feels empowering in the moment, but it actually keeps you tied to him. You're not moving on, you're just reacting. He still has emotional control, even if he's not around anymore. The danger in making decisions based on how someone made you feel is that you stop showing up as who you are. You stop honoring your values. You lose connection with the person you're trying to become because you're busy trying to manage the impact of what someone else did, instead of being the confident, loving, and secure version of yourself. You end up performing toughness or detachment as a defense mechanism. It might protect you for a little while, but it doesn't lead to true freedom. That only comes when your actions come from clarity, not pain. You need to step back and ask yourself, who do I want to be regardless of how he treated me? That's the shift. Because your identity can't be built around avoiding the hurt or proving a point. It has to be built around your standards, your boundaries, your truth. If you want real peace, you have to choose actions that reflect the life you're building, not the one that fell apart. It's okay to acknowledge the heartbreak, but don't let it rewrite your character. When you make decisions from your higher self, from a grounded place, you start to feel real power. Not reactive power, not the illusion of control, but a quiet confidence that says, I don't need to be cold to protect myself. I just need to be aligned with what's right for me. That might mean walking away without closure. That might mean choosing silence over petty revenge. That might mean blocking someone without announcing it. Whatever it looks like, it's not about making him notice. It's about you finally noticing you. The truth is, people will come into your life and sometimes leave you with more questions than answers. That's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to carry the emotional consequences of their immaturity, fear, or inability to love. Your only responsibility is how you respond, and you deserve to respond in a way that doesn't shrink you. You deserve to walk forward with integrity, not with your wounds leading the way. So instead of saying, I'll act like I don't care, ask yourself, what does caring about myself actually look like right now? Maybe it's journaling instead of texting him. Maybe it's surrounding yourself with people who remind you of your value. Maybe it's taking the time to reflect, to grow, to cry, to heal, but in a way that brings you closer to the woman you're proud to be. You don't need to play by his rules. You don't need to match his inconsistency, his coldness, his games. That's not who you are, and it's not who you're becoming. The strongest thing you can do is to remain rooted in your truth, even when it hurts. Because that's how you rise, not by outplaying him, but by outgrowing him. When you choose decisions based on clarity and not emotion, you're not just walking away from a man, you're walking back to yourself. It's tempting to want to keep an eye on karma. You tell yourself you've moved on, but you still find yourself checking his profile, wondering if he's hurting, hoping he misses you. You want to know that he regrets what he did, that life isn't going so great without you, that somehow, someway, he's paying the price for taking you for granted. But the more you look for signs of his downfall, the more you stay emotionally attached to him. You think you've let go, but really, you're just waiting for the universe to give you closure through his pain. That's not peace. That's a delayed version of revenge dressed up as justice. Karma isn't something you control. And it's not something you're meant to watch happen. It works in silence, often in ways you'll never see. The more you obsess over whether he's suffering, the more you rob yourself of your own healing, because your focus isn't on building your new life. It's still on monitoring the ruins of the old one. You can't step into your future with both eyes fixed on his consequences. That's not moving on, that's waiting in disguise. There's a kind of power that comes from letting go so fully that you stop caring what happens to him at all. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but because you've reached a level of emotional freedom where his actions no longer hold weight in your world. You're no longer looking back to see if he's falling apart. You're looking ahead, building something beautiful that has nothing to do with whether or not he regrets losing you. Letting go of the need to see karma is a form of radical self-respect. It means you've decided that your energy is too valuable to spend on someone who isn't part of your journey anymore. That your peace matters more than your ego. That you don't need proof of his regret to validate your pain. The pain was real, even if he never admits it. The ending hurt, even if he pretends it didn't matter. But you survived it, and that survival, that's your story now, not his downfall. The best part is that when you stop checking for karma, you start creating space for actual joy. You begin to notice moments of peace that aren't attached to anyone else's failure. You start to feel grounded in your own life, not in his mistakes. And you slowly remember what it feels like to live for you again, to wake up without wondering what he's doing, to fall asleep without needing answers. That's freedom, and yes, maybe one day he will feel the weight of what he lost. Maybe he'll look back and realize he let go of someone rare, but by then it won't matter to you, not because you're pretending not to care, but because you genuinely don't. You'll have built a life that's so whole, so full of purpose, that his regret becomes completely irrelevant. That's what real healing looks like. The universe doesn't owe you a performance of his consequences. It owes you nothing, but you owe yourself a life that's no longer tied to people who couldn't value you. So stop watching the clock, waiting for karma to show up. Start showing up for yourself instead. Let your healing speak louder than any revenge ever could. Let your growth be the only answer you ever needed, because the moment you stop checking if karma is working, it already has. So here's where it all lands. You don't need to erase him from anger. You don't need to wait for his regret to feel whole. You don't need karma to punish him so you can finally move on. What you need is to choose you consistently, unapologetically, and without looking back. Every time you stop checking for signs, stop reacting from pain, stop replaying the past, you take back your power. Not in a dramatic, loud way, but in the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth, even when others couldn't see it. Let him live with the choices he made. That's not your burden anymore. Your healing doesn't need an audience, and your growth doesn't require his acknowledgement. You didn't lose anything that was meant for you. What you lost was something that was holding you back from the life that is. So walk away not to teach him a lesson, but to give yourself the freedom to start again. Let karma do what it does in its own time. You've got better things to do, because the story doesn't end with him, it starts with you, and from here on out you write every word.